James gently squeezed my hand under the table, letting me know that everything was going according to plan. Though, to be honest, we did not really have a plan, and I was starting to think we were making a huge mistake. Pretending to be a simple school teacher had been my idea, but I had clearly underestimated the scale of his family's hospitality, and yet I had no regrets. I wanted to see how they would treat me without knowing about my background and my father's wealth. So far, the reception had been, to put it mildly, tense. James had invited me to his mother's birthday party. It wasn't a milestone celebration, so they were having a small family gathering at their country house. "Mom, Dad, this is Emily." James introduced me, his voice wary, as if he were expecting an explosion. "We have been together for quite a while, and I really wanted you to meet her." "Nice to meet you," I said, trying to sound confident, though my knees were trembling slightly. "I'm happy to finally see your family." "Emily, is it?" James's father, Richard Evans, drawled, studying me with a thoughtful expression. "Our son hasn't told us much about you." "What do you do?" "I am a history teacher at a school," I replied, and immediately noticed the flicker of skepticism in his mother, Margaret Evans's eyes. "A teacher question mark?" She raised an eyebrow. "For how long?" "A year," I said with a smile. "I love working with children. Sometimes they are wiser than many adults." "A teacher, huh?" James's aunt, Linda Evans, suddenly chimed in. "James, are you sure this is practical? With her impressive salary, your girlfriend might have a hard time affording a decent life." I felt James tense up beside me. He was about to say something, but I gently touched his shoulder, signaling him to let them talk. This was a test, after all. I wanted to hear everything they truly thought. "My salary suits me just fine," I replied calmly. "I live modestly, but I have enough for food, small trips, and my favorite books." "Enough," Linda smirked. "Well, if you say so." At this first stage of the introduction, I felt completely underestimated. The atmosphere seemed polite, but I could hear the distrust behind every question. To them, I was just some girl not from their circle, poor, without connections. I had no doubt that if they knew whose daughter I was and the wealth my family had, their attitude would shift in an instant. But I wanted to see how they would treat me without my father's name and fortune. "Son," Linda turned to James as if I weren't even in the room, "have you considered finding someone from a more, well, let's say promising background? Look at Alex, your cousin. His fiancée works in a major bank. She certainly won't struggle." "Mom," James said through clenched teeth, "love isn't based on job titles." "Oh, love," Richard scoffed. "Let us see how your teacher sings after a few years in a cramped two-bedroom apartment with a mortgage." I listened to them, trying not to take offense, but their words stung. It was clear they cared more about my salary and status than about my character, interests, or love for their son. But deep down, I reminded myself, stay calm. This is exactly what you wanted to know. If I revealed my true background, their attitudes would change in an instant. But I needed to see their real feelings before they knew. "Emily," Margaret interrupted my thoughts, "you said you love working with children. What are your future plans? Perhaps you dream of becoming a school principal?" "I have plans," I answered, keeping my tone friendly, "but I am not sure they are within the education system. I love teaching, but I also want to help kids who lack support, maybe by organizing sports programs, creative clubs, or even starting a charity fund." "Oh, a philanthropist," Linda chuckled. "Teachers usually barely make enough for themselves, let alone charity." "Aunt Linda," James's voice sharpened, "Emily has great potential. We have big plans together. Please do not underestimate her." "Relax, son," Richard said. "We are just being realistic. No one wishes you harm." I saw that James was ready to stand up and leave, but I gave him a slight shake of my head, signaling him to hold back. Inside, though, my thoughts were racing. Why are people like this? Why do they measure everything in bank accounts, job titles, and expensive cars? I remembered how my father, a wealthy businessman, but a man who had always taught me independence, once told me, "Find someone who values you for who you are, not for my money." Smiling to myself, I thought, Dad would be proud of me today. Throughout dinner, the conversation continued in the same condescending manner. James's relatives asked leading questions. "So, where are your parents from? Where do you live?" Have you considered tutoring on the side? I tried to ignore their thinly veiled irony. Every now and then, I felt James's sympathetic gaze on me. Emily, Margaret adjusted her napkin. Have you thought about getting a second degree? The job market is competitive, and you might get stuck as a teacher forever. I have considered it, I replied, but I haven't decided on a field yet. I believe you do not need a high-status job to make a difference in people's lives. Making a difference, Richard coughed. Oh, you young people are so naive. Dad, James's voice hardened enough with the comments. I have been searching for someone who values me, not my LinkedIn resume. Emily is that person. Well, I just never expected, Linda cut in, that a guy with your potential would choose such a humble fiancé. No offense, Emily. We are just used to everyone in the family having impressive careers, banking, law, and medicine. Not everyone needs to be a banker, I said with a slight smile. I think the world needs someone to teach children to. Silence fell over the table. James was struggling to remain calm, while Richard was likely already planning how to save his son from a poor teacher. They saw me as an unworthy match and treated me with superiority. And in that moment, I realized something. Do I even want to convince them otherwise? Just then my phone rang. I quickly reached to silence it, but someone caught a glimpse of the screen. A woman nearby gasped, eyes widening. Is that Richard Carter? The Richard Carter from Grand Civ Group? A heavy silence filled the room. Their expressions changed instantly. Yes, I said simply, that is my father. But we didn't tell you because we wanted to see how you would treat me without knowing. Everyone started speaking at once. Oh, well, if we had known. What a surprise. You should have told us sooner. I glanced at James. He wasn't shocked he had expected this reaction. His eyes held quiet amusement. Mr. Evans, Miss Evans, I addressed his parents. I wanted to see how you would treat me as just a school teacher. Now I know, and I ask you not to be offended by our deception. I needed to understand if your acceptance depended on money. A tense silence followed. A moment ago, they had mocked my profession. Now they were practically fawning over me. Emily, dear, Margaret gripped my hand, her voice suddenly warm. We had no idea. We just thought, well, you understand. I understand, I said quietly. But I won't forget. James smirked. Mom, Dad, I hate to say it, but you failed the test. Their excuses poured in, but James and I exchanged a knowing look. As we walked outside, I sighed, a mix of sadness and relief washing over me. James whispered, so, convinced now? Convinced, I nodded. But you know what? This just proves you love me for me. And as for the rest, maybe we can teach them a lesson? James laughed, pulling me into an embrace. Oh, I like the way you think.